Got a story? This is FYI, the show where you get to report on the issues you care about.
I'm here at the Lee Valley Athletic Centre to investigate why so many girls my age seem to drop out of sports.
And would you live in a city that floats on water? We head to New York to see how Americans plan to adapt to rising sea levels. So as always, we have loads of info for you to help us all get a better understanding of the news. Like, what's all the fuss about Prince Harry's book? And how far should the protest over climate change go? More later.
And we have your stories too. Let's start off with a report from Isabel, an FYI viewer who wants to kickstart a more open chat about puberty. And she wants boys to listen up too.
I'm a runner. I train every week as well as compete, and I hope to keep doing sports for the rest of my life. But each year that I grow older, I notice there are less and less girls training in my age groups.
Did you know more than half of girls quit their favourite sport by the time they finish school? But why is this? I've done some digging and it's not an easy answer. We need to talk about puberty.
Our bodies go through a massive change as we start to become an adult. It's called puberty. And of course, when your body is changing so much, you become self-conscious. Some studies have found that a lot of us fear being judged and bullied, and we lose confidence in how we feel and look.
Going through puberty is very difficult for a girl. We can experience weight gain, body hair growth, and other bodily changes, which can make us feel quite self-conscious when wearing sports clothes and doing an activity. And periods. This can be a difficult change for girls. Cramps, bloating, tiredness, and yet no one wants to talk about the subject. But what would happen if we were more open about puberty and periods?
I spoke to some of my friends who are still training in sports, and they are well up for talking openly about a subject most shy away from.
So what have been some challenges that you guys have faced as a teenage girl in sports?
Period has been like a bad one for me. But
yeah, I think everyone goes through that because when you have a cramp and it's a competition day, it's always like so really stressful. And like sometimes you have to miss training because you've got a bad cramp or you're feeling too tired or you've got a headache.
It's hard to tell coaches, especially when most of them are male. And it's hard for the male coaches to understand because obviously they don't go through it themselves. But if we could make them more aware, I don't know how.
Yeah, maybe like in, you know, like coaching courses that they do, maybe like put like a bit of section in that where it's like how to deal with like teenage girls on their periods or like teenage struggles that we just face in general.
All the coaches I have are male, so it's like much harder to talk to them about that kind of things.
We do need help with it. It's not like we can just face it by ourselves.
And I think it's a reason a lot of girls drop out.
I mean, apart from periods, what other like barriers have you
I mean, especially kind of like body image issues, because, you know, especially because, not just in athletics, like, you know, swimming, like you're wearing shorts and like crop tops and stuff, so you can be like self-conscious a lot, like, you know, about body hair and things like that.
I'm really conscious about that because every time before a race, I'm always like, do I have any hair on my legs? Like, do I need to shave?
Do you think it would be a good idea if, like in the PE like education system, that they introduced like a section where
the emotional changes.
Yeah, the emotional changes and stuff. But in like PE, we don't really get taught about how it affects us in sports.
That's all that girls think about, when boys can just like literally look like anything.
And another like part of puberty is like all the hormones can kind of like overwhelm you with all the emotions and the mood swings and things like that.
What support do you wish you had?
At school, we should be taught about the emotional side of puberty as well as the physical changes.
And like the social side and kind of how it sort of impacts on your self-esteem.
Everyone needs to be taught about it, not just our age or like not just adults. Like even boys our age need to be taught about it so they understand that it's a thing that we all go through.
People should be more open about these kind of things. It's just what happens to you. It is a part of life, and it shouldn't be seen as something, you know, that's inappropriate.
It's clear not enough is being done to support us as we get older. We need to bust the myth that teenage girls are dropping out just because we're not interested.
I want to see a future where we can talk openly about puberty and never feel alone with it.
I want to see a future where girls can take part in sports without the fear of being judged.
I want to see a future where we can feel confident about how we look, no matter what changes we are going through.
Thanks, Isabel. Well, we all know that puberty is a really important subject, and there are loads of questions, but sometimes we're just too embarrassed to ask. So we called in an expert.
FYI's Maya took up the challenge with her questions for Dr. Alex George, the government's youth ambassador for mental health.
Hi Dr. Alex, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
So, for those of us who don't know,
What is puberty and when does it start?
Puberty, put simply, is the changes we go from being a child to being an adult. Generally around 8 years old through to the age of about 16 or 17. We go through changes in our body and our hormones change, even our minds change as well as we mature. This is different between boys and girls.
So what does it mean for us girls? You know, what kind of things happen to our bodies?
So in girls, breasts develop, we grow hair in different places, like for example under the armpits and in the pubic regions, and also the brain basically tells the ovaries to start releasing eggs. And really what we're talking about is that maturation process to allow you to potentially be a mother. So the first period that a girl experiences can be anywhere as young as 8 years old. And when that happens, that process can be quite new or uncomfortable.
Talking about periods is a bit of a taboo subject. How can we change that?
I think it's education not just for girls but for boys as well. So in the school place that can be having policies that make you know, for example, sport as inclusive as possible, making sure we're actually teaching effectively about puberty at school.
Yeah.
And I think the schools and also wider society saying it's okay to have questions and it's okay to feel worried about this, it's okay to come forward and need help.
So really we just have to normalise it?
Yeah, it's just about making the conversation normal.
We've contacted the government to see what they're doing to help girls stay in sport. They said they're investing in lots of projects across the country to give girls better access to physical activities, both in and out of school. And they've issued guidance for schools on how they can support girls with their periods.
Now, you've probably seen the royal family in the news a lot lately, but not for the reasons they would like to be.
Prince Harry has released a story about his personal life, an autobiography. But why has it caused so much controversy? Vanity Fair's royal correspondent and author, Katie Nicholl, joins us now to find out more. Hi, Katie, thank you for joining us. So what does Prince Harry talk about in his book?
Well, I think the big question is what story doesn't Prince Harry talk about? He talks about the difficulty of growing up in his older brother, Prince William's shadow. Prince William's always been the heir to the throne, and Prince Harry's always been known as the spare. He also explores his relationship with his father, his relationship with Meghan Markle. They felt that they didn't have the support of the royal family and that they really had no choice but to start a new life in America.
So Katie, this is on top of lots of TV interviews. Royals don't usually talk openly about private matters, so why Prince Harry?
He says so many other people have told his story, but he wants to tell his story now, and I think that's what Spare is all about for him.
So what have the reactions been to the book?
The reactions have been pretty mixed, but a lot of people also feel that he's revealed too much, that really private details of conversations that he has had with his father and with his brother should really have stayed behind the palace doors.
Some good news. The government announced that they will be banning the use of single-use plastic items in England, such as plastic plates, cutlery, and polystyrene trays. That's great news for the environment. The making of plastic contributes to climate change, and a lot of plastic waste ends up in our oceans, killing wildlife.
Some countries aren't just looking at slowing down climate change, they're also planning on living with it. Here's Lila in New York with a report on how the USA could adapt to rising sea levels.
You might recognize this place from the Spider-Man movies. It's probably the most famous city in the world. Welcome to my home, New York. Unfortunately, New York's got a problem, a really big problem. As our planet's climate changes, the ice caps are melting and there are more and more storms. And because New York is surrounded by water, it means that flooding is becoming more and more common. Just take a look at this. This is not a disaster movie. It's real life. Hurricane Sandy in 2012 and Hurricane Ida in 2021 caused immense damage. Many people lost their lives. For my family, it was a really scary time. I remember one night we were watching TV and we just heard this gushing noise from downstairs. We went down and there was like a waterfall pouring through my window. I think at one point the water was up to like here. Some New York residents are now asking themselves how much longer they can go on living here as the climate becomes more and more extreme and the sea level continues to rise. One One possible solution is to try and hold back the waves with a seawall. And that's exactly what they're doing here. The city is spending billions of pounds on flood defenses. I'm meeting Thomas, one of the leading engineers.
So, Lila, following Superstorm Sandy, what we came up with is a seawall that runs all around the southern tip of Manhattan. It's about 10 miles long. We looked at it and we thought about wave action. There's a potential for water still splashing over the wall, which is why we're coming up to an elevation which is about 9 feet higher than where we're standing right now.
So here's the thing. Flood defenses are great, but some people think they're just a sticking plaster. And eventually, a bit like with my sandcastle, the rising sea levels will do their damage. So do we need a more radical solution to save our coastal cities and ultimately to save humanity? Well, how about this? An incredible vision of the future, like something out of a movie. Welcome to the world's first floating city. So this is just a computer-generated animation showing what it might look like. But believe it or not, a city like this could soon become a reality. I'm meeting the chief engineer from a company called OceanX, which is hoping to build the world's first floating city in South Korea.
The advantage of a floating city is we can move up and down with the waves and with the tides. And the fact that it's floating is also helpful because it will accommodate the seawater level rising.
But how can you make a city float? Won't like the buildings and everything be just way too heavy?
Well, it follows a certain physical principle, which is the one that is used by boats, right? They are very heavy, but they still float.
So is this an exception that we just can't beat climate change? We're gonna have to live with it?
I believe what we're doing right now here is trying to find the solutions to a problem that is actually becoming real. There are a lot of nations right now where their population is being displaced. They're becoming climate refugees. And so if it's going to be stopped, we have potential solutions, and this is one of the solutions, and we're going to pursue with that.
So maybe we're gonna need a new New York, a city that floats like a boat. How crazy is that?
Nice report, Lila. When it comes to climate change, one thing we all want is to have our voices heard by the politicians in charge. But protest groups like Extinction Rebellion have been criticised for stopping traffic, vandalising buildings and statues to get their message across.
Extinction Rebellion have said they will not be using disruptive protests for now, admitting it had little effect on getting their message across.
But there are other groups like Just Stop Oil. They also use disruptive tactics, and they say they will not stop until the government promises to end new oil and gas productions, the very fuels that lead to climate change. But are their methods of protesting justified?
Time for you to get your shout on this. We went to Plymouth, home of the Tamar Bridge connecting Devon to Cornwall. We're going to hear from an FYI News Club at Devonport High School.
Do you think art's a valid target for climate protesters?
I think it's only valid because the protesters are protesting for something they find important.
I don't think it is. They want the public to listen to them, so they're making big statements like throwing super paintings so people will notice them, because they said they knew that the glass was there and they weren't really intending to damage the painting, more just get people to notice.
The way they're doing it is the wrong way.
Yeah.
They are protesting to help the climate, but the way they're going at it is bad.
I've also heard about them stopping the traffic as a protest, and it's just a really horrible thing to do overall.
I disagree with people disrupting traffic because they're walking in the road to stop people using like diesel and petrol, but what they're doing is slowing traffic down, so they're making people burn more petrol and diesel. They're making matters worse by protesting in the streets.
And people who are in those cars, there could be ambulances with like people who are in critical condition, and if it costs somebody their life, that's definitely not the best way to catch people's attention. You can do other ways, but I really don't think that disrupting traffic and destroying things is really not going to help matters.
I think people should be arrested for protesting in a disruptive way.
I feel like you need to be loud, but you shouldn't be aggressive. People aren't going to want to support your campaign if you do it in a harmful way. Climate change is becoming more and more of a problem, so if we don't take care of it immediately, then we're not going to have a planet anymore.
We want to leave you with some more positive news about the environment.
This week, scientists announced that the hole in the Earth's ozone layer is on track to being completely healed by 2040. Result: The ozone layer is a thin part of the Earth's atmosphere that absorbs most of the ultraviolet radiation from the sun. If the radiation reaches the surface, it can be harmful to humans and other living things.
So back in the 1980s, there was an international agreement to stop using the harmful chemicals that cause the hole. And it seems to be working.
See you next time for more info on the big stories. Bye!